"Bring me the woman at the gate," Alpha King Callum Thorne said, his voice carrying across the frozen training yard. "And nobody touches her." Marin Vale stopped beneath the iron archway as every wolf in the courtyard turned to stare. Snow clung to the shoulders of her dark coat, and the small glass vial hidden in its lining pressed cold against her ribs. She had been inside the royal territory for less than 30 seconds, and the man she had come to kill had already noticed her. "Keep moving," the guard beside her muttered. Marin forced her feet forward. Callum stood nearly 50 yards away, dressed in black, one hand resting on the shoulder of a young wolf who had lost control during training. The wolf was half-shifted, shaking hard, but Callum did not raise his voice. "Look at me," he said. The young man obeyed. "Breathe." The command settled over the yard like thunder held inside a closed room. The wolf calmed. That was not what Marin had expected. Gideon Rusk had described the Alpha King as cruel, unstable, and hungry for power. He had told her Callum enjoyed watching weaker wolves break. Yet the king stepped back the moment the young man regained control, giving him space instead of humiliation. Marin hated the doubt that moved through her. She had not crossed 3 states to question Gideon. She had come to finish a job. 7 days. 1 dose in Callum's drink. Hollow Creek would be safe, and the debt written in her parents' blood would finally be paid. "Name?" the guard asked as they approached the estate steps. "Marin Vale." Callum's head lifted. The reaction was small, almost nothing, but she saw it. His shoulders went rigid. His wolf pressed against the surface of his skin, turning his eyes from deep blue to a flash of silver. At the same moment, something inside Marin surged toward him so hard she nearly lost her breath. Not fear, not submission, recognition. Her inner wolf, silent for years beneath layers of suppressant herbs, rose and whispered one impossible word. "Mate." Marin's fingers tightened around the strap of her bag. No, that could not happen. Not with him. Callum crossed the yard slowly, and the pack parted without being told. He stopped several feet away, close enough for Marin to feel his presence, but not close enough to touch her. His gaze moved over her face, then to the pulse in her throat. "You have no scent," he said. "Is that a problem?" Marin asked. A few guards exchanged looks. Omegas did not speak to the king that way. Callum, however, almost smiled. It usually means someone is hiding. Marin held his stare while the vial beneath her coat seemed to grow heavier. Everyone hides something. The entire courtyard went quiet. Callum studied her for 1 long second, then turned toward the estate. "Take Miss Vale to my office." The guard beside her hesitated. "Your Majesty, her clearance is for the archive wing." Callum glanced back, his eyes still carrying that unnatural silver light. "It has changed." Marin followed him up the stone steps, listening to the steady beat of his heart from several feet away. He was calm, too calm. She did not know that Callum could hear hers, too. And with every step she took toward the man she had been hired to kill, her heartbeat was telling him the same thing his wolf had already understood. Callum did not offer Marin a seat when they entered his office. He walked behind the wide desk, set one hand on the polished wood, and watched her the way a wolf watched movement at the edge of the trees. Behind him, tall windows framed miles of white mountains and dark pine. The room felt less like an office and more like a command center. Pack maps covered one wall. Secure phones sat beside old leather-bound records. Power lived here, but so did pressure. Marin kept her face calm. The vial beneath her coat had not moved, yet she could feel it as if it were burning through the fabric. "Who taught you to hide your scent?" Callum asked. "I am not hiding it." His gaze sharpened. "That answer would work better if I could not hear your heart speed up." Marin folded her hands in front of her. "Maybe being questioned by the Alpha King makes people nervous. Most people look at the floor. Would you prefer that?" "No," the word came fast. Too fast. Something flickered in his expression, then disappeared. Callum picked up a folder bearing the crest of Hollow Creek Pack. "Your records say you specialize in historical preservation and treaty archives." "That is correct. They also say you have never traveled outside Hollow Creek territory. Until now. And yet you knew which entrance had fewer guards." Marin said nothing. Callum moved around the desk, not closer to her, but close enough that the mate bond tightened like an invisible thread between them. Her wolf stirred beneath the herbs in her blood. She hated that part of herself for recognizing him. She hated him more for making recognition feel like relief. You checked every exit in the training yard, he continued. You counted the cameras in the hallway. You noticed the guard outside my door favors his left knee. Marin lifted her chin. Maybe I pay attention. Maybe. His voice stayed calm, but his wolf was not calm. She could feel it pushing against him, restless and confused. He stopped near the window and looked out over the estate. Hollow Creek requested access to our sealed records 3 times in the past year. Every request was denied. Then why approve mine? Callum turned back to her. I did not. A cold line moved down Marin's spine. Someone inside the Crown Estate changed your clearance 12 hours before you arrived, he said. Someone wanted you here. Gideon had never mentioned an inside contact. He had only told her where to go, what name to use, and when Callum would be vulnerable. Marin forced herself to breathe evenly. Are you accusing me of something? Not yet. He stepped toward the desk and pressed a button on the phone. June, prepare the lower archive room for Ms. Vale. A woman answered. The lower room is restricted, Your Majesty. Not anymore. Marin stared at him. You are giving me access after saying someone falsified my clearance? I am keeping you where I can see you. His eyes dropped briefly to the collar of her coat, as if he could sense the hidden vial beneath it, and where no one else can reach you without going through me. For one dangerous second, Marin forgot the plan. The words did not sound like a threat. They sounded like protection. Callum opened the office door. One more thing. She paused. The herbs you are using will damage your sense of smell before you turn 30. Marin went still. Only Gideon and the pack healer knew about the suppressants. Callum's expression changed when he saw her reaction. Not triumph. Concern. Who told you they were safe? He asked. Marin could not answer. From the hallway, a guard approached with hurried steps. He handed Callum a phone and whispered something too low for a human to hear. But Marin was not human. One phrase reached her clearly. Another Hollow Creek body was found near the northern border. Callum looked at Marin, and the silver returned to his eyes. It seems your pack sent more than one secret into my territory. The lower archive room sat beneath the eastern wing, 2 floors below the main offices and far from the polished halls where the royal pack entertained visiting alphas. June Mercer led Marin down a concrete stairwell with a ring of keys clipped to her belt and a paper cup of coffee in one hand. Do not let the name fool you, June said. Lower archive sounds harmless. Half the crown's secrets are buried down here. Marin glanced at her. And the other half. June pushed open a steel door, walking around upstairs in expensive suits. The room beyond smelled of dust, cold metal, and old paper. Rows of locked cabinets stretched under white ceiling lights. A security camera watched from each corner. Callum had not exaggerated. He intended to keep her where he could see her. June set the coffee beside a computer terminal. You have access to treaty records, border disputes, and pack census files. Anything marked Black Seal stays closed. What happens if I open one? A royal guard appears, asks uncomfortable questions, and ruins both our days. June gave her a small smile. Try not to make me regret liking you. It was the first kind thing anyone at the estate had said without obligation. Marin looked away before the warmth reached her face. I will do my best. For the next several hours, she sorted files while pretending not to search for Hollow Creek. The dead wolf found near the northern border had changed everything. Gideon had promised no one else would be involved. If he had sent another operative, then Marin was not the only weapon in play. Near midnight, June left for the residence wing. Marin waited until the hallway went quiet, then removed a thin metal pick from her hair. The black-sealed cabinet stood 12 feet from the nearest camera, just outside its full angle. She had noticed that before lunch. The lock gave after less than a minute. Inside, folders were arranged by pack and year. Hollow Creek, 17 years earlier. Her fingers stopped on the label. Before she could open it, the steel door slammed behind her. A royal guard crossed the room in 3 fast steps and seized her wrist. Step away from the cabinet. Marin reacted before thought could catch up. She turned with his grip, shifted her weight, and used his momentum to bring him down against the carpeted floor. His radio slid away. Her knee pinned his arm. Silence filled the room. Then Callum spoke from the doorway. That is enough. Marin released the guard immediately and stood. The young man pushed himself up, embarrassed and angry. Your Majesty, she broke into a sealed cabinet. I can see that. Callum's gaze moved from the open lock to the metal pick still in Marin's hand. Leave us. But, Your Majesty, now. The guard obeyed. When the door closed, Callum stepped inside and picked up the folder Marin had nearly opened. "Your father teach you that too?" he asked. "Teach me what?" "How to put a trained soldier on the floor in 4 seconds. Marin slid the metal pick back into her hair. He believed daughters should know how to protect themselves. From whom? Men who asked too many questions. For a moment, Callum almost looked amused. Then he held up the Hollow Creek file. "You came here for this." "I came here to work." "You came here with forged clearance, hidden scent, and enough training to disarm my guards." His voice stayed low, but the mate bond pulled tight between them. Marin could feel his suspicion. Beneath it was something worse. Fear for her. "Why have you not arrested me?" she asked. Callum looked at the cabinet, then back at her. "Because whoever sent you expects me to." He placed the folder on the table, but did not open it. "And because I want to know what you will do when you realize I am not the enemy you were promised." Marin's heart struck hard against her ribs. Callum reached past her, took the metal pick from her hair, and examined its sharpened edge. "Next time you decide to break into a royal archive," he said, returning it to her palm, "choose a hallway without cameras." Then he walked to the door and locked it from the inside. The lock clicked behind Callum, and Marin's hand moved toward the hidden vial before she could stop herself. He noticed. Of course he did. "If I planned to arrest you," he said, "there would be 6 guards in this room. Maybe you prefer privacy. Maybe I prefer answers." A low rumble rolled through the walls before she could reply. The ceiling lights flickered once, twice, then went out. Red emergency lamps came alive along the floor, washing the archive in a dim glow. Somewhere above them, the wind slammed against the estate hard enough to make the steel shelves tremble. Callum touched the communication device at his wrist. "Security, report." Static answered. Then a broken voice came through. "Power failure in the eastern wing. Backup doors are sealed. Estimated reset, 20 minutes. Marin looked toward the exit. The electronic lock had gone dark. "Convenient," she said. "You think I arranged a blizzard? I think kings have access to better equipment than the rest of us. Right now, I would settle for a working door." The room was already warming as the ventilation system shut down. Marin felt it first beneath her collar, a slow heat spreading across her skin. Her stomach tightened. She had taken the suppressant that morning, but stress and rising temperature could weaken it. Gideon had warned her never to get trapped in a closed room with an alpha, especially not this one. Callum's expression changed. His attention sharpened on her, not suspicious now, but startled. Marin caught the first trace of her own scent in the air. Cedarwood after rain. Crushed berries. Something soft beneath it that she had spent years burying. Callum stepped back so quickly his shoulder struck a shelf. His eyes turned silver. "Stay there." Marin did not move. "I was not planning to come closer." "That was not for you." His fingers curled against the metal shelf. The muscles in his jaw tightened as his wolf pressed toward the surface. Marin had seen alphas lose control before. Gideon used to make examples of them, turning instinct into an excuse for cruelty. Callum did the opposite. He put more distance between them. He turned his face away. He even slowed his breathing, as though calm could be chosen one breath at a time. "Your scent suppressants are failing," he said. "I noticed." "How long have you been taking them?" "That is not your concern." "It became my concern when they started poisoning you." The bond between them pulled hard, carrying a wave of restrained hunger, fear, and something far more dangerous than either. Recognition. Marin pressed her back against the table. "Do not say it." Callum's gaze returned to her. "Say what?" "Whatever your wolf is telling you." For the first time since she entered the estate, the Alpha King looked uncertain. Not weak. Never weak. Just caught between the throne he controlled and the instinct he could not command. Another gust shook the building. A box slid from the top shelf. Callum crossed the space in an instant, catching it before it struck her, then stopped with only a few inches between them. Marin's heartbeat jumped. His did the same. He lowered the box and stepped away without touching her. "You are safe," he said quietly. "I did not ask for your protection." "No," his voice roughened. "But you have it anyway." The emergency lock released with a heavy click. Callum opened the door and immediately ordered the waiting guards to clear the entire hallway. No one questioned him. No one came within 10 feet of Marin as he escorted her upstairs. At the end of the corridor, he stopped and looked at her as though he had just learned a truth he had spent years refusing to believe. Marin wanted to deny it. She wanted to blame the herbs, the storm, the enclosed room. But deep inside her, the wolf she had silenced for years lifted its head and answered his. Mate. Callum's face went still. Somehow, she knew his wolf had said the same thing. By the next evening, every powerful wolf in the Crown Alliance knew Callum Thorne had changed the winter gathering schedule. What they did not know was why. Merrin stood near the back wall of the grand hall with a tablet in her hands, and the taste of suppressant herbs still bitter on her tongue. She had doubled the dose after the archive incident. It dulled her scent, but not the bond. She could still feel Callum across the room like heat beneath a closed door. 12 pack leaders sat beneath banners of black, gold, and deep red. Their betas stood behind them. Omegas moved quietly between tables, carrying wine, documents, and carefully neutral expressions. At the center of the hall, Seraphine Cross waited beside the empty throne platform in a dark green dress, composed and proud. Everyone knew what was supposed to happen. Callum would name her his intended Luna. Their union would secure the Western Pax and quiet the growing rebellion near the northern border. Royal duty. Clean, useful, and bloodless. Callum entered through the side doors, and the room fell silent. He wore a black suit with the crown crest at his collar. His face revealed nothing, but Merrin felt the strain beneath his control. He took his place before the council and looked at Seraphine. The announcement will not happen tonight, he said. A murmur moved through the hall. One of the senior alphas rose. Your Majesty, the agreement has been reviewed for 6 months. Then another week will not destroy it. The Pax need stability. Callum's gaze hardened. They need truth more. Merrin's pulse shifted. Seraphine did not look surprised. She looked angry, but not heartbroken. There was a difference. Before the council could press further, a sharp voice rose near the servants' table. Move. A broad alpha from the Red Basin Pack stood over June, who was carrying a tray of water glasses. This section is for ranked guests. June stepped back. I was told to serve this table. You were told wrong. His hand closed around her wrist. Merrin was moving before caution could stop her. She said she was working. The alpha turned. This does not concern you. You are holding her in front of half the Crown Alliance. It concerns everyone watching. The room quieted again, this time for Merrin. The alpha looked her over and smiled without kindness. Another Omega forgetting her place. June whispered, Merrin, let it go. But Merrin knew that tone. She had heard it all her life. Gideon used the same voice before reminding Omegas that obedience was safer than dignity. Let her go, Merrin said. The alpha tightened his grip. Then Callum stepped down from the platform. He did not rush. He did not raise his voice. He simply crossed the hall until he stood beside Merrin. The bond surged so strongly, she nearly turned toward him. He kept his eyes on the alpha. She told you to release her. The man swallowed. Your Majesty, this is a matter of rank. No, this is a matter of consent. Callum's voice remained calm. June said no. Merrin told you to stop. Which part was difficult? The alpha released June immediately. Callum looked to her first. Are you hurt? June shook her head. Only then did he address the room. Rank is responsibility. It is not permission. No one spoke. Merrin felt every eye shift toward her, measuring the Omega who had challenged an alpha and the king who had stood beside her. Callum did not claim her. He did not touch her. Somehow, that made the protection feel more dangerous. Later, as the gathering broke into uneasy conversations, Merrin's phone vibrated inside her pocket. One encrypted message filled the screen. 3 days left. Finish the assignment, or Hollow Creek pays for your hesitation. The message from Gideon stayed on Merrin's screen for less than 5 seconds before it erased itself, but the threat followed her into the lower archive the next morning. 3 days. Hollow Creek pays. She tried to focus on the treaty records spread across the table, yet every page blurred into the same question. How many people would suffer if she refused to finish what she had started? June had left coffee beside her computer without asking questions. Callum had not summoned her after the gathering. That silence should have made the assignment easier. Instead, it felt like distance she had not wanted. Near noon, Merrin found the file she had been searching for. Hollow Creek. 17 years earlier. The same black seal. This time, the cabinet was already unlocked. She looked toward the security camera. Its light was off. That is either an invitation or a trap, she whispered. It can be both. Callum stood in the doorway. Merrin straightened. He wore no jacket, only a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his forearms, as if he had walked away from another council argument. He closed the door behind him, but did not lock it. "You left the file for me," she said. "I left the truth where you could choose whether to read it." He placed a small access card on the table. "The complete record is on that drive." Marin stared at it. "Why would you trust me with sealed Crown documents?" "I do not." The answer landed harder than she expected. Callum's expression softened by a fraction. "But I trust that you need them." She inserted the card into the terminal. A list of reports opened, followed by scanned orders, border logs, and surveillance photographs. Marin found the date her parents died. Her hands went cold. The official order carried the royal seal and authorized a forced removal of Hollow Creek leadership. Below it was Callum's name. She almost stopped breathing. Then she saw the timestamp. "You were not king yet," she said. "No." Callum stood on the opposite side of the table. "My uncle served as regent. I was stationed in Colorado with the Eastern Defense Unit." Marin opened another report. Callum's service records confirmed it. He had been more than 600 miles away. "The signature is yours. Copied from a military authorization I signed 2 months earlier." He leaned forward and pointed to the digital mark. "This line is wrong. Crown encryption did not use that format until the following year." Marin read faster. Witness statements had been deleted. Names had been redacted. One report mentioned a child who escaped through the woods before the raid began. Female, 8 years old, brown hair, gray-blue eyes. Marin pulled her hand away from the screen. Callum noticed. Through the bond, she felt his attention sharpen, followed by a grief so deep it did not feel new. "I found those records after I took the throne," he said. "I reopened the investigation. Every witness was gone. Every trail ended at Hollow Creek leadership. Gideon said you ordered it." Gideon Rusk became Alpha 3 weeks after the raid. Callum's voice lowered. "He gained territory, access to Crown funds, and custody of the surviving children." Marin shook her head. "He saved me." The words escaped before she could catch them. Silence settled between them. Callum looked at her, then at the old photograph on the screen. A little girl stood beside 2 smiling adults in front of a weathered cabin. Marin had not seen that picture since the night everything changed. "Marin," he said carefully, "I have spent years looking for that child." She wanted to deny it. She wanted to tell him the photograph meant nothing. But the bond carried her fear straight to him. Callum turned the monitor toward her and touched the name beneath the image. "Marin Vale. You knew her," he said. His eyes lifted to hers. "Or you are her." "I am not that girl," Marin said. But the lie sounded weak even to her. Callum did not argue. He only looked at the photograph, then back at her, as if giving her one last chance to choose the truth. "All right," he said quietly. "Then I will not force you to be." That should have relieved her. Instead, it hurt. Marin removed the access card from the computer and placed it on the table. "You should go back to your council." "Probably. They are waiting for their king. They usually are." His voice was tired now, stripped of the steel he wore in public. He stepped aside and left the path to the door clear. No guards. No questions. No command to stay. Marin walked past him, but the mate bond stretched between them, carrying something she had not expected from an Alpha King. Disappointment, yes, but not anger. Grief. By nightfall, the doubled suppressant dose had turned bitter in her stomach. Her skin felt too warm, her hands would not stop shaking, and every sound in the residence wing seemed painfully sharp. She made it as far as the royal greenhouse before her knees gave out beside a row of winter roses. Cold glass surrounded her. Snow pressed against the windows, while humid air carried the scent of damp soil and cedar. "Marin." Callum's voice reached her through the haze. She tried to stand. "Do not." He crossed the stone path, then stopped several feet away. Even now he waited. "Can I touch you?" The question caught her off guard. Gideon had never asked permission for anything. Neither had the healers who forced the first suppressant down her throat when she was 12. Marin nodded once. Callum moved quickly, one arm behind her back and the other beneath her knees. He lifted her as though she weighed nothing, but his hold remained careful. "This does not mean I trust you," she murmured. "I know. You keep saying that. Because you keep thinking kindness is a bargain." Dr. Naomi Keller met them in the private medical wing. After one look at Marin's pupils and pulse, she ordered Callum outside. He refused until Marin told him to go. Nearly an hour later, Marin woke beneath a gray blanket with a glass of water beside the bed. Callum sat in a chair near the door, far enough away that his presence did not feel like a cage. Naomi said the suppressants are damaging your nervous system, he said. She talks too much. She is very good at her job. Marin pushed herself upright. Why are you here? Callum looked down at his hands. Because my wolf recognized you. The room went still. Do not, she whispered. I am not asking anything from you. His eyes lifted to hers. I need you to hear that clearly. I will not claim you. I will not use the bond to make a political announcement. I will not decide your future because my wolf wants you near. Marin could feel the truth in him. It moved through the bond, steady and painful. Then what do you want? She asked. Callum was silent for a long moment. For you to stop poisoning yourself long enough to decide what you want. He rose, but Marin reached for his wrist before he could leave. The contact sent warmth through both of them. Callum froze. Their faces were close enough now for her to see the exhaustion beneath his eyes. For one dangerous second, she thought about closing the distance. Then she remembered the vial hidden inside her room. She released him. I am tired, she said. Callum stepped back immediately. Rest. When Marin returned to her quarters later that night, the door was already open. Her dresser drawer had been pulled out. The coat she wore through the royal gate lay across the bed. The hidden pocket had been cut cleanly through. The vial was gone. The alarm began before Marin could call for help. A sharp tone echoed through the residence wing, followed by the voice of royal security ordering everyone to remain in their rooms. Marin stared at the torn lining of her coat. The vial was gone. Someone had known exactly where to look. Heavy footsteps approached from the hall. Four guards entered, with Ethan Thorne behind them. Callum's cousin looked different outside the council chamber. Less like a polished royal beta. More like a man who already knew what he was about to find and hated it. Marin, he said, step away from the bed. She did. One guard searched the dresser. Another checked beneath the mattress. The third lifted a small black case from the bottom of her travel bag. Marin had never seen it before. Inside lay the missing vial. Empty. Ethan closed his eyes for half a second. Who was hurt? Marin asked. Councilman Robert Hale collapsed during a private meeting, he said. The poison was in his coffee. Callum was sitting beside him. The room seemed to narrow around her. Is Hale alive? Naomi is treating him. Ethan looked at the cut in her coat. Tell me why this was hidden here. It was stolen. From you. Marin held his gaze. Yes. One of the guards found a thin injector wrapped in cloth inside the same case. More planted evidence. Clean. Convenient. Enough to tell a story everyone was already prepared to believe. Seraphine appeared in the doorway with two council members behind her. Her face was pale, but her voice stayed controlled. She came from Hollow Creek. A councilman is poisoned, and royal-grade silver is found in her room. What more do we need? An actual investigation, Marin said. Seraphine's eyes hardened. You lied about your identity. You broke into sealed records. You attacked a royal guard. He grabbed me. And now a man may die. Ethan stepped between them. That is enough. Then the hallway went silent. Callum arrived without an escort. His expression gave nothing away, but the mate bond hit Marin like cold water. Anger. Fear. Betrayal. Not certainty. That hurt more than if he had already condemned her. He looked at the empty vial, then at the torn coat. Did you bring that substance into my estate? He asked. Marin could have lied. She had lied about everything else. Yes. A murmur spread through the hallway. Callum's jaw tightened. Did you use it on Councilman Hale? No, who was it meant for? The question landed between them. Marin could not answer. She watched understanding reach him piece by piece. The bond carried it all. Shock first, then pain. Seraphine spoke before he could. Your Majesty, she must be taken into custody. Callum did not look away from Marin. Agreed. The word nearly broke something inside her. Two guards moved forward. Callum's voice sharpened. No restraints. One councilman protested. She may have attempted to kill you. I said no restraints. The guard stopped. Callum turned to Ethan. Private holding room. No interrogation without my order. No council access. Ethan nodded. Marin understood then. In public, Callum was choosing the throne. The law. The distance expected of a king. She told herself she had known this would happen. She told herself it should make the rest easier. It did not. As the guards escorted her through the grand hall, every ranked wolf watched. Whispers followed her. Assassin. Liar. Hollow Creek spy. Callum remained at the top of the stairs, his face carved from stone. Marin did not look back again. The holding room was small, warm, and strangely comfortable. No chains. No cameras that she could see. The door closed behind her with a heavy lock. On the narrow bed lay a folded blanket. Beneath it, her fingers found a brass key and a single piece of paper. The handwriting was sharp and controlled. I believe you. Help me prove it. Marin waited until the footsteps outside her holding room faded, then slid the brass key into the lock. It turned without resistance. Beyond the door, the corridor was empty except for one service light glowing near the floor. The note had not told her where to go, but the mate bond did. Callum was below her. She could feel him through the stone, tense and waiting. Marin followed the narrow hallway past the laundry room and down a flight of unfinished stairs. At the bottom, a steel door stood open. Callum waited inside an old service tunnel beneath the estate, dressed in the same black suit he had worn during her arrest. His tie was gone. His control looked close behind it. You left me a key, Marin said. I needed to know whether you would use it. And if I ran, then Ethan would have stopped you at the north gate. She almost smiled, but the expression died before it formed. So this was still a test. Everything tonight is a test. His voice was quiet. Especially this. Marin stepped into the tunnel. Concrete walls stretched behind him, lined with old pipes and emergency cables. No guards. No cameras. Nowhere left to hide behind rank or witnesses. Callum held out his hand. The empty vial rested in his palm. Tell me the truth. Marin looked at it for a long time. Then she did. Gideon sent me here to kill you. The words entered the tunnel and seemed to stay there. Callum did not move. How? The substance was meant to stop your heart long enough to look like a collapse. I was supposed to put it in your drink before the winter gathering ended. His wolf surged through the bond, not with rage, but pain so sharp Marin had to steady herself. Why, he asked. He told me you ordered the raid on Hollow Creek. He said you were preparing to take the smaller packs by force. He said if I failed, people back home would disappear. And you believed him. He raised me. That was not my question. Marin swallowed. Yes, I believed him. Callum turned away and pressed one hand against the concrete wall. For several seconds, the only sound was the low hum of the heating pipes. When did you decide not to do it? I do not know. He looked back at her. That is not good enough. The training yard. The archive. June. The way you asked before touching me. Her voice tightened. Every time you did something that did not fit the man Gideon described, it became harder. Harder is not the same as impossible. No, Marin forced herself to meet his eyes. But I had 3 clear chances. Callum went still. 3. Your office. The archive during the power failure. The medical wing. Each admission landed harder than the last. You were close enough every time. His face changed. Not fear. Betrayal. And every moment between us. What was that? Marin had no answer that would not wound him. At first, part of the assignment. Callum looked away. At first, the bond pulled tight between them. Marin's heart pounded. Then it was not. He stepped closer, stopping several feet away. Why am I still alive? She wanted to say because you are my mate. She wanted to say because I love the man beneath the crown. Instead, she gave him the only truth she was brave enough to speak. Because you were not the enemy I was promised. A secure phone rang inside Callum's pocket. He answered without taking his eyes off her. Ethan's voice came through clearly. Gideon Rusk has seized 3 northern pack stations. He is broadcasting that the crown has been compromised by an Omega. Callum ended the call. The king returned to his face, but the hurt remained underneath. Go back to the holding room, he said. Marin nodded, though the command felt like a door closing between them. As she turned away, Callum spoke once more. I believe you did not poison Hale. She looked back. But I do not know yet whether I can believe anything else. Morning arrived under a gray Montana sky, but the Crown Estate felt darker than the storm outside. Every television inside the council wing carried the same emergency broadcast. Gideon Rusk stood before the flags of Hollow Creek, announcing that Alpha King Callum Thorne had allowed a dangerous Omega to manipulate the throne. Edited recordings played behind him. Marin recognized fragments of conversations she had shared with Callum, cut apart and stitched together until they sounded like a conspiracy. Council members watched in silence. The damage spread faster than truth ever could. Inside the holding room, Marin heard the heavy lock open. Ethan stepped inside carrying a tablet. His usually steady expression was strained. "You need to see this." He handed her the screen. The broadcast ended with Gideon making a public demand. "Deliver Marin Vale to Hollow Creek custody within 24 hours, or the Northern Alliance will withdraw from the crown." Ethan lowered the tablet. "Half the smaller packs are asking questions. The larger packs are demanding answers. Where is Callum? Fighting a political war." Ethan hesitated before adding, "and losing ground every hour." Minutes later, Marin was escorted through a private corridor into a secure conference room. Callum stood at the far end with Seraphine Cross, Naomi Keller, and several senior advisors. The room fell quiet when Marin entered. Seraphine folded her arms. "We traced the poison vial." Marin looked up. "To me?" "No," Seraphine replied. "To someone who wanted it to lead to you." Naomi placed laboratory reports on the table. The silver compound inside the councilman's coffee was altered after it left the original container. Whoever planted the evidence understood royal forensic procedures. Callum nodded once. "Which means this operation started before you arrived." Marin stared at the reports. "Then Gideon already knew someone inside the estate would help him." "Exactly," Callum said. "We have a traitor." Before anyone could continue, an assistant rushed into the room carrying another secure tablet. "Your Majesty, new footage just arrived from the Western Security Network." The video showed Silas when entering the restricted archive level late the previous evening. He carried a black case identical to the one discovered in Marin's room. The recording ended before he reached the residence wing. "That is not enough for an arrest," Ethan said. "But it is enough to ask why he was carrying evidence into a residential hallway after midnight." Silas was summoned immediately. He entered with perfect composure, offering polite greetings to everyone around the table. "You requested me, Your Majesty?" Callum slid the tablet across the polished surface. "Explain this." Silas watched the recording without changing expression. "Routine document transfer. At 11:47 at night?" Callum asked. "Security work rarely follows office hours." Seraphine leaned forward. "Then perhaps you can explain why the case disappeared from the camera view and reappeared inside Ms. Vale's room." For the first time, a crack appeared in Silas's calm smile. "I believe someone is trying to frame me." Marin studied him carefully. Through the mate bond, she could sense Callum weighing every word, every heartbeat in the room. Silas remained controlled, almost too controlled. Then Marin noticed something else. His wristwatch reflected the conference room lights for just a second, revealing the same carved wolf symbol she had seen years ago inside Gideon's private office. Hollow Creek. Her pulse quickened. "Callum," she said quietly. "Look at his watch." Every eye turned. Silas instinctively lowered his sleeve. It was only a small movement, but it came a fraction too late. Callum saw it. Ethan saw it. So did Seraphine. Silas smiled again, though it no longer reached his eyes. "Interesting," he said softly. "I did not expect you to remember that mark." At that exact moment, alarms echoed through the estate once more. A security officer burst into the room, breathless. "Your Majesty, June Mercer is missing. Her room is empty, and the cameras covering the east garage went offline exactly 8 minutes ago." Marin felt the blood drain from her face. Silas slowly placed both hands on the conference table and looked directly at her. "Now," he said, "you have something much more valuable to lose." Silas was taken into custody before he could leave the conference room, but June was already gone. Security teams searched every road leading away from the estate while Ethan locked down the airfield and ordered the northern gates closed. Nothing appeared on the cameras. No vehicle crossed the perimeter. No phone signal left the property. It was as if June had vanished into the mountain itself. Marin stood beside the conference table, staring at the map of old service tunnels beneath the Crown Estate. "He used the western maintenance route," she said. Ethan shook his head. "That passage was sealed 10 years ago. Then someone reopened it." Callum looked at Silas through the glass wall of the adjoining security room. "Gideon did not build this plan in a week. He has had help inside the Crown for years." Silas sat calmly under guard, saying nothing. Then Marin's phone vibrated. One message appeared from an unknown number. A photograph of June sitting inside a dark room, frightened but unharmed. Beneath it was a location and a demand. "Bring the recovered archive drive alone. 1 hour. No trackers. No king." "Absolutely not," Callum said after reading it. He wants the evidence linking Gideon to the old raid, Marin replied. If I do not go, June pays for it. That is exactly why you cannot go. She is there because of me. She is there because Gideon chose her. Callum stepped closer, then stopped before the distance became a command. Do not confuse guilt with duty. Marin looked at him. You have spent your whole life confusing those two things. The words hit him. She felt it through the bond. Callum glanced toward the council chamber, where pack leaders were already gathering for an emergency vote. If he abandoned the estate now, they would call it proof that he had placed his mate above the crown. If he ordered troops into Hollow Creek territory, the northern packs could break away. Every path demanded something from him. The council plans to suspend my authority, he said. Then let them, Marin answered. You do not mean that. I mean I will not let June disappear because everyone here is afraid of looking weak. Callum's jaw tightened. And I will not hand you back to the man who spent years turning you into a weapon. You promised my choices would remain mine. Silence filled the room. Ethan looked away. Seraphine lowered her eyes. They all understood what Marin had done. She had used Callum's own promise against the part of him that wanted to lock every door and keep her safe. I hate this choice, he said. So do I. Then do not make it alone. Marin removed the archive drive from the secure reader and placed it inside her coat. I am not asking permission. Callum's eyes flashed silver, but his voice remained controlled. No, you are asking me to stand here while you walk into Gideon's hands. I am asking you to trust that I am not the same girl he trained. Outside, the council bells rang 3 times. The vote had begun. Ethan received an update and turned pale. The council has suspended Crown authority until further notice. Royal Guard command transfers to me. Callum did not react. He only watched Marin. At last, he took off his coat and placed it around her shoulders. There is a transmitter sewn into the left cuff, he said quietly. They will search me. Then remove it when you need to. Keep it until then. Marin nodded. At the north gate, snow had turned to freezing rain. A black vehicle waited beyond the barrier with no license plates. Callum walked beside her until the guards could go no farther. His wolf pressed through the bond, full of fear and restrained fury. Tell me to stay, Marin whispered. I will not. His answer nearly broke her. Why? Because loving you cannot mean taking your freedom when I am afraid. She looked at him for one long moment. I did not come here for your throne. Callum's face softened. I know. Marin opened the vehicle door. I stayed because of you. The door closed between them. As the car disappeared into the storm, Ethan approached from behind. What now? Callum watched the empty road. No crown on his head and no authority left in his name. Now we make sure Gideon learns the difference between letting her choose and letting her face him alone. The black vehicle stopped outside an abandoned high school football stadium near the northern border, its rusted lights rising above the snow like ghosts from another lifetime. Marin stepped out alone, the archive drive hidden inside her coat. Across the empty field, wolves from more than a dozen packs stood in uneasy silence. Gideon had not arranged a secret meeting. He had arranged a public judgment. June sat beside the old scoreboard, frightened but unharmed, watched by 2 Hollow Creek guards who never laid a hand on her. Gideon smiled as Marin approached. I knew you would come. Let her go. In a moment, he spread his arms toward the gathered pack leaders. First, everyone deserves the truth. Large screens flickered to life around the stadium. Edited recordings appeared again, showing fragments of Marin speaking with Callum, carefully rearranged to suggest betrayal inside the crown. Murmurs swept through the crowd. Gideon raised his voice. The Alpha King abandoned his duty because of 1 Omega. The crown is broken. Marin looked around at the faces watching her. Some were angry. Some were uncertain. Many simply wanted someone to believe. She reached into her coat. Gideon smiled, expecting the archive drive. Instead, Marin pulled out the small microphone Ethan had hidden inside Callum's coat before she removed the tracking device. She clipped it to her collar. You want the truth? She asked. Then stop hiding from it. The stadium became silent. Marin took a slow breath. My name is Marin Vale. Gideon raised me after my parents died. He told me Alpha King Callum Thorne ordered their deaths. He trained me to enter the crown estate and assassinate the king. Gasps echoed through the stands. Gideon did not interrupt. He believed the confessions served him. Marin continued. Everything I believed was built on lies. She held up the archive drive. The official records prove Callum was hundreds of miles away during the Hollow Creek raid. Someone forged his authority. Gideon's smile faded. Enough. No, Marin answered. You had enough years ago. She turned toward the gathered alphas. Ask yourselves one question. Who became alpha of Hollow Creek immediately after the raid? Who inherited the territory? Who controlled every surviving child? Dozens of eyes shifted toward Gideon. Before he could answer, engines echoed outside the stadium. Several vehicles rolled through the open gates. Ethan stepped out first with royal guards beside him. Seraphine followed carrying printed records, while Naomi held certified forensic reports. They walked into the center of the field without hesitation. Ethan raised his voice. Multiple secure Crown servers recovered deleted files before the archive drive was removed. Every document has been independently verified. Seraphine placed copies into the hands of several pack leaders. The forged authorization, financial transfers, and communication logs all point to the same network. She looked directly at Gideon. You did not work alone. At that moment, another vehicle entered the stadium. Callum stepped out without royal escorts, without ceremonial guards, and without the crown around him. Officially, he no longer held authority. Yet every conversation stopped when he crossed the field. Gideon laughed. You came anyway. You really would throw away your throne for her. Callum stopped beside Marin, but did not touch her. No, he answered calmly. I came because truth deserves a witness. Gideon turned toward the crowd. She admitted she came to kill him. I did, Marin said before anyone else could speak. I accepted that mission. That choice belongs to me, and I will answer for it. She looked across the stadium. But I also chose not to become the weapon he wanted me to remain. Silence followed. Then June stood. Her voice shook, but it carried across the field. She saved my life. One by one, other witnesses stepped forward. Naomi confirmed the poison had been altered after leaving the original vial. Ethan confirmed evidence had been planted. Seraphine confirmed the financial records connected Gideon and Silas for years. The weight of the lies finally began to collapse under the weight of the truth. Gideon looked around and realized the crowd was no longer watching Marin. They were watching him. His confidence disappeared for the first time. Callum looked at the gathered packs instead of at Gideon. No alpha, he said, should fear the truth spoken by an omega. Then he turned to Marin. Before hundreds of wolves, he asked the one question no king had ever asked her. What do you choose now? Marin looked across the stadium, at the wolves who had been taught all their lives that rank mattered more than truth. Then she looked at Gideon, the man who had built her childhood out of fear and called it protection. I choose to speak for myself, she said. The words were quiet, but they reached every corner of the field. Gideon was taken into custody under pack law, not by Callum's command, but by a vote from the leaders he had tried to manipulate. Silas faced charges for falsifying records, planting evidence, and helping carry out the Hollow Creek conspiracy. There was no celebration. Some victories were too expensive for cheering. Weeks later, the Crown Council restored Callum's authority, but he refused to return under the old rules. The throne does not need more power, he told them. It needs more voices. A new council was formed with seats for alphas, betas, and omegas from every region. The first law they passed gave every wolf the right to refuse a transfer, a claim, or a bond ceremony. No rank could replace consent. Marin returned to Hollow Creek for the spring. She helped rebuild the pack records, reopened the school, and stood beside the families who had lost years to Gideon's lies. Some forgave her quickly, others did not. She accepted both. Redemption, she learned, was not being told she had done nothing wrong. It was choosing to do better after finally seeing the truth. Callum never asked her to come back. He sent no commands, no royal invitations, and no promises meant to pull on the mate bond. Instead, he sent one key in a plain envelope. It belonged to a small cedar house just beyond the Crown estate, with a porch facing the mountains. A note inside read, "This is not a cage. The door opens both ways." 3 months later, Marin drove through the iron gates beneath a warm Montana sunset. Callum was repairing the fence beside the cedar house, though the crooked boards suggested he had no idea what he was doing. He looked up when her truck stopped. For once, the Alpha King had no speech prepared. "You came back," he said. Marin stepped onto the gravel. "I said I needed time. You did. And you gave it to me." Callum set down the hammer. "Was that the correct decision?" She glanced at the uneven fence. Better than this one. He laughed, soft and surprised, and the sound carried through the trees. Marin walked toward him until only one step remained between them. I am not ready for the old claim ceremony, she said. Then we will not have one. I do not want to kneel. Neither do I. She held out her hand. Callum waited until she closed the distance herself, then took it gently. The mate bond settled between them, no longer a chain, no longer a command. A choice. Inside the house, his crown rested on the kitchen table beside her old archive key. The symbols of who they had been sat together in ordinary afternoon light. Marin looked around at the warm rooms, the open windows, and the second coffee cup waiting beside the first. I came here once to end your life, she said. Callum looked at her for a long moment. You did. She raised an eyebrow. He smiled. The life where I believed duty meant standing alone. Outside, the last snow melted from the mountain road. Marin understood then that home was not the place where someone claimed you. It was the place where you were known completely, forgiven honestly, and still allowed to choose the door. She had spent years believing love would cost her freedom. In the end, real love was the first thing that gave it back.